Hi, I'm Marie from SoCentral, and I'm going to dive right in. Norwegians consume way too much, and in the Norwegian government's efforts to understand how they can achieve the sustainability development goals, they saw that taking down our consumption, reducing our overconsumption, was something that they needed to involve people in. We have a resource use that is the fifth highest material consumption per capita in the world. Disturbingly, we are also beyond our Nordic neighbors in consumption, which is harder to explain. And so the Minister for Digitalization and Public Governance in the fall of 2024 invited people in the first national assembly, citizens' assembly that we've had in Norway, to help create policy on how to reduce overconsumption. And the reason it was this particular ministry is because they coordinate the Norwegian government's efforts on the sustainability development goals. So the assembly was asked to answer these questions. A lot of times we call this the remit in citizens' assembly lingo. But they were asked how we can together reduce overconsumption of goods while continuing to live good lives, and what will it take for us to consume less? And finally, also, how can this reduction be done in a way that is inclusive and fair? And we had 66 members selected for this Citizens' Assembly. On this map, you can see their little yellow dots, and they each represent a member and their place of living from where they were living at the time. And it was representative on the criteria of gender, age, education, and place of living. And I just want to, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but to visualize why citizens' assemblies add something different in terms of representativeness, I think this is just important to dwell on for a second. So on the graph on the left, you see the level of education in the Norwegian population as a whole, and the light blue would be the people with higher education. And so the pink is high school, and the dark blue is people who have completed grades 1 to 10. However, the people who responded to that first wave of invitations, the 40,000 text messages, were 85% of people with a higher education background. And usually that's where we stop in these open involvement processes and say, okay, well, those are the people who wanted to respond and participate. But then in this two-step lottery, we do the final step and we create an assembly that is representative of the whole. So the assembly was mirroring how many people in Norway actually have the different levels of education. And diving right into the integrity, there were a few questions that we had to pose. Because how do you make sure that the commissioning body, which in this case is the ministry on behalf of the Norwegian government, is not influencing both the deliberations and the recommendations of the assembly? And I added unintentionally because even if there was no intention of foul play, there are a lot of ways in which a commissioning body can influence what happens in the room and the recommendations that come after. So I'll go into the solutions for that. But we also make sure that the Citizens' Assembly and the recommendations are perceived as independent of the commissioning body by the general public, by the Citizens' Assembly members themselves. And then I also want to raise an oversight question, who guards the guardians? If you have someone that you've given the task of making sure this is a process of integrity, who will have oversight over that organization? The way we solved it in this Citizens' Assembly, you can see like an organizational map here, is that we as SoCentral with We Do Democracy, our Danish partners, were the secretariat. And then the commissioning body, you can see here on the left, and we are deliberately placed in between the Citizens' Assembly and the commissioning body to make sure that there is a distance between those two for for the duration of the process. And then we also had, as you can see in the yellow and blue boxes, some other groupings and organizations that helped create that integrity. First of all, taking this from the OECD principles, the most effective way to ensure integrity is to have an independent third party organize and conduct the Citizens Assembly. So in this case, that was us, and we do democracy, and probably goes without saying, it should be an organization that is experienced in this kind of work and also experienced in particular in citizens' assemblies, and I would also say the OECD principles. We also had independent third parties conducting the invitation and random selection rounds. So the Norwegian company Sentio, and also the Danish-Norwegian company Analyse og Tall, which also does the Danish, a lot of the Danish invitations and selections. We used skilled deliberative facilitators in the room with the citizens, meaning that the people that they interacted with were not representatives of the commissioning body, but someone that they perceived as neutral to the remit. We worked to make sure that decisions about the recommendations and also about the process were made by assembly members as much as possible, meaning that we really strive to make sure that they are the ones who write and edit their recommendations. When it comes to information that you mentioned, Claudia, we had an independent expert group selected on criteria on, you need to be an expert on consumption. You need to have criteria. You need to be published, that kind of criteria. And they decided what kind of information the Citizens Assembly would be provided with. And then finally, to make sure that the whole process and us as an independent third-party secretariat had oversight, we engaged an international advisory board consisting of experts and practitioners from both Norway, but also from other countries who had experience in assemblies, to make sure that we could also discuss our role and to be asked questions about our role and how we were conducting the process.